Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today's review is going to be on the Genius Professional Tools wrench set, and this is the zero offset box wrench. And the really cool thing about these wrenches is that you can get into tight places, still get a grip on things, especially for the Hyundai Sonata when it comes to changing that serpentine belt. These wrenches excel. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about today and just reviewing. So with this box set, you get this cool carry case, which I actually use to mount on the walls. You can see those two holes right there. But if you don't have the storage space in your tool chest, you can see that they just mount really well on the wall until you can upgrade to something bigger, because these wrenches are long. Yeah, just be aware of that. And so the sizes you get 10 and 12, 12 and 14, 13 and 15, 14 and 17, 16 and 18, 17 and 19. So you do get some overlapping pairs, which is really cool. You get two 12s, two 14s, and two 17s. So those are going to be your common sizes that you're going to use a lot of. And the cool thing with the pairs is that if you ever have to use two wrenches to unscrew something or unbolt something, then that can be a good point. So here you see that the stamp is really awesome. You get really good chrome plating, and you get that 12-point design that just lets you grab onto a nut at almost any angle. And then you can see there how it extends out a little bit. And so that's really good at getting into those tight places versus an offset wrench. If you have something with any kind of like an offset, like 15 degrees or anything like that, then it makes getting into tight places really difficult. And so they could have just shaved off that extension, but they allowed for the wrenches to kind of have that extension, which is really cool, because that's what makes the zero offset great, is that it doesn't have the offset, but it's still able to reach in there, grab a hold of that nut or bolt, and break it loose. And these wrenches are long, so you have that leverage, you have that torque that you can apply to really, break free of those stubborn fasteners, which is really cool. And you can see it's stamped chrome vanadium, and the numbers, the sizes are stamped. So that's really cool versus laser etching. I'm always a fan of stamps, and really good stamps, like just a deep stamp. Some stamps are pretty light, and you still have to kind of look. And so another thing that I want to point out is the edging. A lot of people talk about the edging. They like the rounder type edge. It's easier on the hands. One thing I did notice is that it is a little kind of sharp, I would say. But if you're wearing gloves, I mean, it really doesn't matter. It's not going to be a problem. But just to kind of show you, you can see on this wrench, this is a Craftsman Professional. It's a little rounded, and that's kind of like the Genius is a little more sharper. But I mean, as far as performance goes, it's not gonna hurt anything. So most likely you're wearing gloves anyway. So but if that's something to think about, then yeah, the edges are a little sharp. They're not as rounded, so that's something to consider. But aside from that, I think they're great, and that shouldn't stop you from making the purchase for these wrenches. And so another thing that I'd like to point out is just that these wrenches, they're just like really well made. I mean, they're not gonna break on you or anything like that. There is some flex, and I will talk about that later. But as you can see, now we're going to kind of come to some sizing and everything like that. So you can see here's the pairs that I'm talking about. So if you really need to just use those common sizes to break free, like the bolt and the nut, then you can do that. So that's really cool. You have those common sizes. And that allows you to get into those tight spaces, whereas sometimes you might buy a set and they don't overlap, and so you end up using a socket and a ratchet with the wrench, and you just can't get into that tight spot. So with these wrenches, what's cool is that you can get into really tight spaces and use both wrenches, because they have common sizes, so you're not stuck. You're not forced to buy two sets of the same wrench, just so that you can have matching pairs. So that's one of the things that Genius Tools kind of does for you. They look out in that area, in that regard, is to give you some overlapping sizes, which is really cool. And another thing is that with these wrenches, you can see once again that it's, as you get into the bigger sizes, they still give you those overlapping numbers, which is cool. And so just once again, that chrome plating is amazing. I mean, it is just ultra highly polished, something that's just gonna, you're gonna want to look at for just hours and stuff. So it's really cool. I really like the chrome plating. You can pretty much see my reflection in the wrench, and so that's really cool. Okay, moving forward, now we're gonna go ahead and just line these wrenches up and start measuring and see what we get in terms of size. So for our smallest wrench, which is gonna be our 10 to 12, that comes in at 11.5 inches. So 11.5 inches roughly for the smallest wrench. And now we're going to go ahead and move on. And by the way, you'll notice that there's two wrenches that are not matching, and there's two that are. So now we move on to our 13 and 15 and our 12 and 14, and those measure in at 13 inches. So here you can see that it's the 13 and 12, and then we're going to have our other wrench, which is going to be our 12 and 14. And once again, both of these wrenches measure in at 13 inches. So as you can see, they are quite long. Now we have another standalone wrench, and this one is going to measure in at 14.5 inches or 14.5 inches. And this is going to be our 14 to 17. And this is the wrench that I recommend. This is the size wrench that I recommend for the Hyundai Sonata serpentine belt change, and that's the tool of choice. And then so now we come back to another paired set or a matching set in size, and so here we have our 16 to 18 and our 17 to 19, and that's going to measure in at 16 inches even. So as you can see, that's a really long wrench, and that's awesome for just, getting a lot of leverage on things. Okay, so putting everything back together, here you can see the two paired sets and then the two standalones. So that's just something to consider if you are, thinking about sizing and everything like that, and if you do need to purchase an extra set. But once again, the sizes in terms of bolt fitment or fastener fitment overlap, but in terms of size, some sizes are going to be, they're not going to match. So that's just something to be aware of. But if you need like for a length size fitment, then purchasing an extra set might be an option. Okay, here we have a Craftsman Professional 17 millimeter wrench. This is a offset wrench, but I just want to illustrate that the Craftsman Professional made in the USA fits this bolt head pretty tight and within spec, within standards. And so now we're going to compare that to the Genius zero offset box wrench, and of course the same size. This will be the 17 to 19, and so you can see here that, hey, it fits just the same. So, and these are made in Taiwan, and so there's no difference in fitment. Everything is great. So just something that I wanted to point out with everybody is that these wrenches are on par with other professional tools. And here you can see this is the other 17, and it's the same fitment, and there's no difference in I guess you could say performance, but yeah, so the play is the same and everything like that. So that was the 14 to 17, and then you have the 17 to 19, and you know, you can even see on the other end that it just doesn't, you know, there's no play, no play that's more than the Craftsman Professional. So that just kind of reassurance, peace of mind, you know, that's something that you're on the fence about, if they're going to fit right, or if you've read some reviews out there, then you know that it's going to fit. Okay, so one thing I did notice is that there is some flex in the wrench just because they're so long, but they don't flex in the way that you're going to be using them. So, you know, you're going to be using them like, you know, left to right or up and down, uh, and they're not going to flex. But if you start, you know, trying to pry something with them, then they do have the possibility of flexing. And at that point, you're using them the way that they weren't intended to be used. So, but that's just something to keep in mind, that they do have a little flex to them, but it's not going to affect performance in any way. And so once again, these wrenches are awesome. You know, I think they're perfect for the job, especially for the Hyundai Sonata, getting into the tight spots, and you can't go wrong with these wrenches. So I highly recommend them. Go out, get a set. You won't be disappointed, and it's a great thing to add to your tool collection. So with all that said, hope you enjoyed this review.